I think if you are developing a management company or any company at this point, especially if you're a consultant, should be a reflection of you, and maybe think less about what the industry expects your logo and your branding and your color palette to look like, and more what you would enjoy to look like.
Hey guys, welcome to the party. This is the Women in Influencer Marketing podcast. I am so excited to have you guys here. We're going to have such a fun time today. It's just like a very grounded episode. I have on a friend of mine, Cheyenne Brink Venuti, who is just a gem. We've known each other now for probably like at least 5 or 6 years, I think, at this point. And I've seen her from working at like a traditional talent agency, representing models in print, to getting her dream job, which those are her words, at an incredible creator talent management agency and transitioning there to that agency, like closing its US operations, and her being in like a very precarious situation and thriving now when she made the decision to launch her own thing, which is the hoodie. I guess it's not a hoodie, it's just a sweater, but it's called Brink. If you guys are watching on YouTube right now, I'm rocking their merch, which she sent me for the holidays. It's so cool. It's so comfy and I love it. We're getting into what it is to launch a management company, what it was like to go through layoffs, and why branding is so freaking important. She is so real, so honest, so grounded. I'm such a big fan of hers, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear. What else do I have to say before we get into this episode? We have a lot of stuff launching in 2024, you guys. If you are not a member of WIM yet, you should really strongly consider it, because new year, new you, and a theme that we actually do talk about in this week's episode that's very applicable to becoming a member of WIM is this concept of investing in yourself. There are a lot of people who we're so used to, especially as marketers, especially as influencer marketers, we're so used to supporting our clients and pleasing our clients, whether they're the creators, our client, or the brand is our client. It's so rare that we get a moment or we make space to have a moment where it's about us for a freaking second. And it should be, because think about it. If you are not going to invest in yourself, who the hell else will? Why should anybody else if you're not even going to do it? WIM is just such an incredible opportunity. I know that a lot of you just tune into this podcast and are like, oh, cool, it's a podcast. It's actually so much more than that. At its core, we're a networking community. We are a community of women who come together and support each other professionally in this like creator economy influencer marketing realm. I have seen such like support, such assistance and guidance and mentorship and educational opportunities come from it. We curate some of it, and our community also curates the rest of it. Like, it's a really beautiful space, and I really hope you guys open your minds to investing in you. We have monthly memberships, so you can always just try it out for a month and see how it feels. I have a strong suspicion that you're going to love it, so I encourage you to check it out. The link to join will be in the show notes. It's iamwim.com/join. Check it out. See if it's for you. I happen to think you're going to love it. And I know I teased this in a couple episodes ago, or maybe even last week's, but we're going to be launching a creator membership in the new year, which will consist of casting opportunities galore. So if you are listening and you're a creator and you want to be more self-sufficient, like, I want to get my own deals, I want to build more relationships, I want to know about all these opportunities, that's what the creator membership is going to be. So keep an eye out for that. I don't want to keep talking too long because I really want to get into this episode. So I'm going to shut up. I'm going to stop. And I look forward to you hearing more from Cheyenne. So let's get into it. This show is sponsored by Women in Influencer Marketing, better known as WIM, the best online community for the creator economy. You will meet fellow influencer marketers, you'll meet brands, you'll meet talent agencies to talk shop, get hired, and even find a mentor. When you become a member, do not forget to check out all of our incredible resources. For example, we have dozens of masterclasses from the top voices at TikTok, at YouTube, award-winning agencies, and women who are paving the way for us all. So if you want the chance to network with a who's who in influencer marketing, check out what it takes to become a member. Make more money and have fun doing it. Visit iamwim.com/join. That's iamwim.com/join today. And I so look forward to seeing you more around the community. All right. So I today have a super, super special guest who you just heard a little bit about in the intro, but I always like to hear it from your own words a little bit more just about like your path, your professional journey from working at like a traditional agency, talent agency, to now having your own. I'm repping you. Oh, I have to like move my mic to fully show this off. This awesome like sweater that you just sent that I love. I'm like living in it to show off that you should support your local management company because that's what you have now, your own baby, your own company. I'm so proud of you. First and foremost, welcome. And how are you?
Thanks, Jessie. I'm so excited to be here. A long time coming. I am well. I am excited. I'm in the midst of Q4 and things are moving quickly. And thank you for throwing your merch on. I should have matched you. I should have ripped my own merch today.
I'm doing it for you. It's better to have an endorsement from someone else anyway. And I just love this. It's so comfy and it's so cute. I love the colors. So I just thank you for sending it to me. And I want to make sure to wear it today. So I would love for you to just sort of like walk us through your professional journey, like in your own words. So our audience has a sense of it all. Do you want to start? Where should you start from?
We can start early days. I started as an intern at a boutique talent agency right in the center of Hollywood that primarily specialized with women's lifestyle, modeling, commercials, very, very traditional, very boutique. There was a handful of agents in the office, and I was able to work my way up to an agent at my own desk. I was working with women primarily over the age of like 35. So we had a great, like, mature lifestyle department. And I was at that company for 5 years. I ended up moving up to be the director of the print division. And I also was spending a ton of time on social media. I ran the agency's social media in addition to my own pages for fun. And so I got the idea to start up the influencer division that still exists today at that talent agency. So 5 years in, I'm a full-blown agent, director, and I am working nonstop, repping so many talent, so many wonderful models and actors. But my passion was really in social media and in the digital landscape. And so I wanted to make a change career-wise. So I interviewed at a bunch of places, landed at a very reputable management company. And that was like my dream job. And I was there for 3 years and it was wonderful. I developed a really diverse roster of content creators and influencers and met some really great folks, made some awesome connections in the digital world. And then that kind of leads us to, I guess, 18 months ago when the rug was pulled out from under me and I was a victim of those mass layoffs that we heard about. And that had a huge impact on my career. I was at such a turning point, but I chose to just kind of carry on. And I wanted my day to day to stay as similar as possible to what I was doing before. Because the rug was kind of pulled out from under me and I wasn't actively interviewing, I was kind of shocked at what was happening in that moment. I already mentioned I had my dream job and I didn't want anything to change. So that's like what birthed Brink Management. And that's what I do day to day now. So I just operate as a solo talent manager, working with a boutique roster, primarily women in their, I would say, like late 20s, primarily in the fashion space, and facilitating a lot of wonderful collaborations in addition to helping talent develop products and develop their own brands. So that's kind of what I'm doing today in a
I
nutshell.
love it. And that's like the perfect arc to say just like, "Oh my gosh, you really like came from this incredible place and then found another incredible place, had the rug pulled out from underneath you like you said, and now you have your own thing." And I want to get into like specifics of all of that because I of course, there's so much more to dig into. And I just want to acknowledge I can imagine that this isn't an easy like thing to talk about per se. Getting the rug pulled out from under you is like a very nice way of, I'm sure, like expressing how it really felt in the moment and like how it all went down. And so just so many people listening, I know can relate to that. You know, you're talking about layoffs. That's so many people these days are experiencing it. So I know a bunch of people's ears probably perked up because they're like, oh my gosh, girl, me too. Like, what was it like for you? But before we get into that, I think I just want to know sort of like what made you want to even venture out to work with creators in the first place? Because, like you mentioned, you worked with like models and more traditional talent. Like, what was the allure for you personally?
I think I was spending so much time on Instagram and I was really the part that I loved about booking models was seeing my end product, seeing that print ad and getting to share that with the talent that I booked. But print was not booming, you know? It was just a little bit of a dying landscape and I wasn't able to get that satisfaction. There was not a it wasn't a super lucrative industry. There were people that had been doing it for a lot longer than I had been doing it, and I felt that I belonged in a different space. I belonged with people who liked brands that I liked and that were into kind of the next wave of advertising, which to me was content creators, influencers. I was able to kind of view the landscape from a traditional lens in the sense that I was comparing the talent, the influencers on my Instagram feed to the commercials during the Super Bowl. Nordstrom beauty sale being example of influencer Super Bowl in a sense. And I was consuming a lot of that content and I saw kind of what the marketplace could be like using foresight and just comparing it to the traditional realm.
And I think that perspective of being able to be in the world of influencer marketing and also being able to like really fully understand and appreciate where it came from is like a really powerful tool in your toolbox. So I think that it's like an incredible skill and perspective to be able to have. And so you, for all intents and purposes, like it sounds like you got a lot from the traditional agency that you worked from. And then you just found like the next exciting venture that you wanted to pursue. So then you go off and you want to explore the creator economy, which probably wasn't even called that back then. It was probably just called working with influencers. And so you left that agency to start working at a talent management company that had been around since 2010. And like this, so this was many years after that. Basically, like it had been around for a hot minute. And so you were at that agency once they hired you for, I think, over 3 years, which is not an insignificant amount of time. So, for like all intents and purposes, to the outside world, especially, it felt like a really stable, successful agency until it wasn't. Like, and it felt, I'm just sharing from my perspective. I have no idea what it was like from the inside, and we're going to get into that. But like, from my perspective, it felt very sudden when they suddenly folded their US operations. Like, I certainly had no idea, but it was very surprising. It just felt so successful. So, what was that experience like to live through? I don't know if you can take us back to that. I think it would be really insightful because it was such a, I'm sure, crazy experience.
Absolutely. When I first landed at the company, that was my dream job. And I really was just such a sponge. I soaked up everything about the digital landscape. I owe that company and those fellow talent managers so much. They taught me incredible things. We bonded so much. And it was one of those companies that I think finally gave me the satisfaction of a work life balance, which is huge in our world and in the creator world and in the talent representation world. You're always working after hours, the clock never stops. And I was able to just really bond with my coworkers, and everything was great until it kind of wasn't. And I think early days, what I wasn't super privy to was we were being acquired by a larger media group. When I was transitioning to the company, I was so focused on just getting on my feet, starting and building my roster. That was just kind of like a tidbit in the back of my mind and seemed like too big of a deal. And I had come from a world of smaller, of more boutique companies. The company prior to the management company, like I said, was a handful of agents. So there was no acquisition in play. That was not on the company's radar at the time. So I didn't understand how much weight I think that held. And looking back, it seems natural that they would have made changes. But when you're in the mix and you're really just trying to establish yourself in a new facet of your career, like I was trying to establish myself as a digital talent manager, took that like too lightly. I think I didn't let that impact me enough. I was so focused on keeping my roster happy, making a name for myself, that I was not doing a wonderful job of networking. So when I received the notice that I was no longer an employee of the company and everybody else received the same notice and I was locked out of my computer, the first thought was, oh my gosh, I've made that grave mistake of getting so comfortable in my dream job. I have not done the networking that I know I was supposed to be doing. I'm now working remote in Philadelphia. What am I going to do? How am I going to get back out there? And that's when a bunch of other decisions were made. But I think the key takeaway was in that moment, it was so clear to me that was coming, but also so jarring that I just didn't know what to do even with that hindsight. I was able to say, huh, okay, I'm really sad right now, but I saw that coming. What do I do with that knowledge?
Well, it's also, I mean, come on. I don't know. I want you to be like somewhat easy on yourself because even if you do see it coming, I don't know, like nothing's final till it's final. And you also, as a talent manager, have your day to day operations to continue to do. So who wants to dwell on something that isn't firm yet, isn't a final thing yet? So I don't know. I want to give you more credit than that. But look, I think that an acquisition is like, it's a really mixed bag. I think that most people, because I have sold a company and I'll just speak personally, like when I tell people that, they're like, oh my God, so impressive, blah, 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 so exciting. And I'm like, if you only knew like what the hell happens behind the scenes of something like that. And like, I can imagine maybe there are some companies that acquisitions just go so smooth and it's just like rainbows and butterflies, but like that's not the majority of the stories that I hear from people. It's usually messy is the word that comes to mind, and certainly like people unfortunately get let go, and like a lot of the times it's due to no fault of their own. And when that does happen, it's like it never seems like it's handled well. Like I was just interviewing somebody else for the same podcast and she was talking about when she was part of the Twitter
Mhm.
layoffs back when Elon Musk was acquiring Twitter. So I've had this conversation with so many people. So like it's something else entirely when it happens to you and like you're living it. And I feel like no matter what, like you can be listening to this podcast right now and being like, all right, I'm going to listen to Cheyenne and like I'm going to prepare myself. And I am like, and if that happens to me, I feel ready. And then it happens to you and you just are just human and you're just going to feel what you feel. So I don't know. I just want to give you more credit than that. And so I remember we had conversations early days of when that happened because I wanted to help you sort of navigate your next steps. Like, how did you do that? Like, what were some of the main considerations that you had in trying to plan out the next steps for yourself? Like, how did you navigate that transition?
It was such a rocky landscape. I think initially when I got the news and I was, like everybody else, locked out of their computer and there was the frantic texts and the group chats going, that was very emotional. And I think it was a group of people. There was a handful of us that our employment was terminated and the emotions were just flying. It was, did you know? And like you said, Jesse, even if you know, what are you going to do? Brace for impact? Nothing's final till it's final. So I think there's a lot of emotions flying around. And I think the best thing that you can do, and my advice to anybody out there that's experiencing this in real time, is to hold on, brace yourself, have those conversations, but just know that everything truly will be okay. I knew that at the bottom of my heart, I could go out and get another job. I could reach out to people like you, people that I've known. I could go back to the traditional space. I knew that I could get a job. I would be able to provide for myself. What broke my heart was that I was no longer at my dream job at my home with my girls, which is kind of what I endearingly call the roster. So I think with talent management, everything is so personal about our business. Unfortunately, I've been working with some of my girls for years now, and I couldn't imagine working without them. And that would break my heart. So it just felt like so many of my relationships and so many of my friends were just going to be no more. And I think that's what fueled so many chaotic emotions. But the saving grace and what I realized was how much I mattered to those girls and how much I mattered to those people and to my colleagues. And we all kind of leaned on each other. And the roster of people that I was working with at the time were so beyond supportive. They were texting me things like, I'll go wherever you go. And, can we just do this thing solo? And so that's kind of what I leaned on were the people that I worked with who were in the same boat as me, the talent that I had worked with and worked hard for the last 3 years. And I was able to harness those wild emotions, the unknown, and move forward in a way I like to think I moved forward with grace. And that's how Brink Management was born. It was born through wanting to continue to work with the roster of talent I was managing day to day, my passion for them and their support for me because they had other options truly. And I think that just speaks a lot about me in the space. I that sounds so weird, tooting my own horn.
No, to your own horn.
It's true. It's I really was having conversations with the talent. I was being very, very real about the situation I was in. What I had done at that company, I think one of my mistakes was making that name of that company and my job as a digital talent manager at that company such a large part of my identity. And when that rug was pulled out from under me and when I was terminated, I felt like I lost a chunk of myself. And it took me kind of realizing and the roster kind of reminding me doesn't matter that what that company title is, really truly matters the roster and what we work on together and the ads that we bring to life, our relationship. That's just kind of a home for our work together. So I really leaned on the roster so much. I was so real with them. Tears were shed. But at the end of the day, I think looking back, that's what saved me. That's what kept me going.
I so appreciate that you shared that piece of it too, because I just, at the end of the day, I think that being vulnerable is like hugely important when you are going through something like that. And being able to lean on the people who are going to be there for you, because sometimes they're not. Like sometimes, and sometimes there's like reasons outside of your control too. It just like messy. It can get really messy. But when you're just honest and like vulnerable, I guess is the operative word, with what's going on and where you're at and like your intentions and what you want to achieve here, I think that your true supporters and your true support system really just present themselves. And that's who you want to align with anyway. So it can almost be a blessing to just reveal the people that are your cheerleaders and just the most important people in your network anyway. So now you're independent and you launched this incredible company, Brink. I have it on my shirt. And I just want us to, I would love for, there are some people who also just have aspirations of starting their own thing, no matter what their current, like their prior situation is. And so talk us through that transition, because I want to learn like how you came to the decision to launch your own company. Like you said, you're employable. You can go get a job anywhere else, technically speaking. And you made arguably what might have been like the more challenging decision to launch your own company. What was it like in the earliest of days? And like, what did you learn from it?
I think early days, it was so messy and it was so emotional. I actually, right when I was terminated, I called a family meeting with my husband and my in-laws, and I said, "I've just been laid off. Nobody freak out. It's gonna be okay. I know I can go get a job. I have some chats lined up, but what do y'all think about me just starting my own company?" And everyone was a little quiet, and then they said, "Let's do it. Let's do it right now." So I pulled out my laptop, got on LegalZoom, got an LLC, and I said, "If it doesn't work out, if for some reason it fails, and what does that even look like? What does that look like? I will just go get a job. It'll be fine." And that was the best decision I ever made. And I think that when I was first laid off, I reached out to so many people and I got so much great advice, but what nobody told me to do was go start my own company. And I wanted to challenge myself. I'm not one for doing it the easy way. I have always just been a person who has really been in it for the long haul. And you can tell that by my resume. I was at my first company for 5 years, my second one for almost 4 years. So I didn't want to just go get a job. I wanted to build a home. And I had been for the past 9-ish years looking at the inner workings, for lack of a better term, the blood and guts of management companies and agencies. And I thought, I can absolutely do this. I think I can do this. I spoke with some friends who had started their own agencies. I have to shout out Taylor Trumbo from Evolve Artists Agency. I was sending her texts in the middle of the night and she was responding. And was I was able to have so many great conversations and people gave me such great advice. And I just, at the end of the day, it was me and the roster. And I had a few people asking me if they could just kind of give me a commission of their jobs. And I thought, I'll do you one better. Let's do an LLC and a logo, and like, let's just keep everything moving. Let's keep it like business as usual. And I think it was so much easier than I ever anticipated. I thought that in order to start a company, you had to have 30 years experience and a degree and multiple degrees, and you had to have just these crazy previous titles. And there is no prerequisite for owning a business and for starting a management company. I think it's about you and your relationships. And I think we're so lucky to work in representation where the work that you put in and the people that you know matter so, so much. So I created a home for me and the roster. I never wanted to be laid off again. I never wanted to have that rug pulled out from under me. And I thought, I'll just do it myself.
Oh my gosh, I'm so proud of you. Because I don't know. I can understand, like, I've been there in that
Yeah.
transition. And I also just like been privy to a lot of people who really want to experience that transition, but are just like scared or nervous and whatever. And like understandably so. Like we all were. We'd be lying if we didn't say that if we said we weren't. But I think it's so amazing to hear your story because like you did it and you're thriving. And it sounds like you like truly created this life for yourself and are creating this life for yourself that's just like what you want it to be, where like you said, I can't get laid off again, like this is my baby and like this is what I'm doing and I'm in control. And like, of course, things are going to go awry and like it's not going to always be perfect, but you feel those lows more than when you're an employee. But oh my gosh, do you feel the highs so much more? And also, I think what's interesting that you said too is just talking about like, we all have these preconceived notions about what it takes to like launch a company. And I certainly thought a lot of the same things you did. Well, you have to have all this experience and all this know how and all of these resources. And like,
Mhm.
I couldn't possibly have those things. That's not, I don't maybe identify as like a company owner. But I also think it's such bullshit because it also, what happens, because like those aren't true, is that it precludes so many people who don't necessarily have the access to, you know, an MBA or like whatever it is. It precludes us from venturing out into that company and starting it. And the truth is, and I'm curious like to hear your thoughts as well, of course, like the truth is we all just sort of learn as we go. And like like the relationships piece that you mentioned is hugely important because if you have a network of people, you can pick their brain, they can pick your brain. It's definitely reciprocated and you help each other out along the way. But like nobody, even those MBA graduates, like nobody has all the answers. It's such a fallacy. Like that doesn't exist. You can totally launch your own thing and you can even mess it up a little bit, but
Mhm.
you learn and you fix it. You fix it. There's totally an opportunity to do that. Has that sort of been your experience? Like, have there been moments where, oops, that wasn't the right move? Like, I need to fix that. Like, is there any specific thing that comes to mind that you've learned along the way that if you were to give advice to somebody listening who is wanting to like launch their new thing in 2024, new year, like, you know, what are there specific missteps that you made that you would advise them to avoid?
There's so many learning lessons. The whole process of starting the business and starting my own management company has been a learning process. And that's been one of the best, most rewarding parts. When I was employed, I felt a constant sense of no. And I think that might be because I'm a people pleaser. That could have been in my head. I don't know. But when I wanted to do brand trips and when I had more creative ideas, I was always like kind of hearing the word no. And now that I have my own company, I don't hear the word no very much. And I think that's a good thing for my type of personality because at the end of the day, even if I make a decision that's wrong, it is still a decision and the business is still moving forward and things are still happening every single day. And I can always fix it. Life is making mistakes and a business is a reflection of that. And I am not a perfectionist in the slightest. My business will never be perfect, but it can always be better. And that's something that I really thrive in an environment with an endless to-do list because it keeps me busy. It keeps my mind going. And instead of pouring my all into a company that could lay me off, I am pouring my all into myself and into this business. Going back to being more vulnerable, there have been decisions where it's like, in hindsight, well, shit, probably would have made a different decision or probably would have kept better track of early days as far as like my expenses, but everything has been sorted and everything has been within my power to sort out. I think the big thing that's the big crossroads that I'm at right now is with outsourcing, and do I bring someone on to kind of help me with my day to day? I've been really kind of against that for so far because I really can't trust anybody, and I know that's such a common like entrepreneur mistake. You have to expand if you're going to grow and if you're going to scale and all these things, but at this point, and this could be the wrong decision, Jesse, I could be making a mistake right now. I'm not willing to kind of open myself up and cut off my right arm to let someone be my right arm. But I think that I might be forced to make a different decision in 2024 with the way the business is going and just how busy it is. But I think decisions and mistakes are made every day, but that's the same. I'm in the same boat as everybody else. The best part about having a business in our digital industry is that nobody has all of the answers. There's nobody out there with the handbook to becoming an influencer or a handbook to brand deals. It is constantly changing, and I am using that to my advantage. I feel like it's still the Wild West, although it is something that has existed for nearly a decade now. But it is ever changing with the rise of TikTok, with Instagram's new features. And that is really working to my advantage. And just being able to adapt and learn constantly.
I love that. Because, yeah, sometimes it really is. It's like those soft skills that we don't even necessarily think are like that valuable. It's like, I don't know, I'm adaptable. Like, is that useful? And it's like you're discovering how incredibly useful that is. Like, to be perseverant, to be resilient, these are like some soft skills that maybe you wouldn't necessarily bring up like in a job interview. Like, why would I bring up that I'm, resilient in a job interview? That's a weird thing to bring up. But when you have your own business, these soft skills become invaluable. And it's also like I think that a lot of the people that you'll do business with will also appreciate them because, like you're saying, it's just all a relationship business too. And, to master the skill of making people feel a certain way, that's like another soft skill, but like that can be so beneficial to having a successful company, whether it's like employees that you might eventually probably have, or people that are hiring your creators or the creators themselves that have to trust you. It's such this like personal relationship, as professional as it is. Like, it's just such a personal relationship that you have with creators. So I don't know, the soft skills, they're very important. But I also very much appreciate when you're talking about like feeling the need for the business's sake to expand and to outsource things and to hire. And it's very honest of you and super relatable to say, while that's the case, I don't know if I can trust people because you've been through some shit where you did trust a lot and the rug got pulled out from under you. I have been there and I completely understand. And like, I don't think that's something necessarily that will go away, but I don't think that's something that should go away. I think that's like a very important lesson that you learned. And also, here's a fun fact, like, it doesn't have to be black and white when you hire. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. My personal preference, I love hiring contractors and working with people on like a 1099 basis, part time. And when things hopefully do well and everyone's doing great, you grow that. But If I'm being honest, it's very much what you're talking about. Like, why am I doing it like that? A lot of it is because of, I have to trust a person, a lot in order to have them, have that big of a hand and that big of an impact in my company and in my businesses. And like, it's just, so it's very understandable. I guess the only thing I would say is like, it's not just black and white. You don't some people like these are just misnomers that everyone thinks, it's like, well, when I start to hire, I have to hire someone full time, right? And I have to like give them like health insurance, right? It's like absolutely not. We're in such a different world. And I think I love that you're like, I'm using all these things to my advantage. That's another thing that, the world changing that you can totally use to your advantage. I also would love to talk about, I mean, we were like joking a little bit about this awesome hoodie that I'm wearing. And like, if people have checked out your website and stuff, I think you've done such a great job of branding your agency, which is just like a whole other level that not all, agency owners and entrepreneurs would focus on. But I think it's really freaking smart that you've like distinguished yourself from a branding perspective. I love that. So did you build that yourself? Like, did you outsource that? And like, how important is your company branding to you overall? Let's talk about that.
I have a wonderful designer, Roger Shami. He's actually part of Drake design team for Drake's clothing. And he is a god. He understood the message, completely understood the assignment. Branding is everything to me. When I was in college, I took graphic design courses. I always have had a very keen eye for typefaces. I'm a millennial. I gravitate towards the packaging that I like, that makes me feel good, that kind of sparks joy. And I wanted the company to be very, very reflective of me and my personality. In the past, I had worked for companies who the logos were just more corporate, just a very, very, for lack of a better term, and not to be rude, but drab. It's just, lots of blacks and grays, and I wanted nothing to do with that in my company. I consider myself to be a very fun person. When you email me, I'm like not shying away from an emoji. And I wanted the company to reflect that. I wanted it to be fun. I wanted to have a cute typeface. Those things matter to me. If I'm going to be looking at my logo in my email signature, I better love it, especially now that it's my own and I can pick what I get to invest in and what I get to spend money on. And again, Jesse, I don't hear no from the CEO of Brink very often, and that might be a bad thing. But for me, branding was everything. And I made a statement with mine in that it's not stuffy, corporate, drab gray. It's like pink and red. It's emotive. It makes you feel good.
And do you feel like it's you? Like, do you feel like you've made like your stamp on this? Do you feel like it's a response to what the industry would respond to? Like, how did you sort of approach what you landed on? Like, and I don't know if I'm making sense, but like, is it more you or is it more just what you think people would like gravitate towards? Or is it a combination?
Well, luckily, I know my designer well and he knows me well. And I think it is a reflection of me and my personality. I am, with my personal style, I have always really liked pink. And I do think it is something now that is trending. I'm seeing a pink and red outside of Valentine's Day so much more. But I like to think it's a reflection of me. I like to think it's the way that my wonderful designer, Roger Shami, sees me, which is just like, maybe I'm flattering myself. But yeah, he killed it. He knocked it out of the park, and branding is everything. I think if you are developing a management company or any company at this point, it should be, especially if you're a consultant, should be a reflection of you, and maybe think less about what the industry expects your logo and your branding and your color palette to look like, and more what you would enjoy to look like.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just it's like it's your first impression to a lot of people. And then it could be the lasting impression for the rest of the people. I think it's like really special that within the first couple years, you're sending out your own merch to people. And it's like, how are you doing that? It's because you want people to identify with your brand. You have a brand to identify with, and it looks different. I just think the uniqueness of it is really special. And I wholeheartedly like upvote the importance of branding, especially in a small business, because like those first impressions are just really, really important. And also, the exciting thing is that there are so many more people who are venturing out onto their own and doing their own thing, whether, they're consultants or they consider themselves like to be launching an agency. And how do you distinguish yourself amongst those people? And like branding is just such a great way of doing it. So I love that you're focusing on that. And so speaking of focusing, like how do you hope to grow Brink Talent Management in the next, let's say, 5 years? Like walk us through your dreams.
So I mentioned I am just at the moment not seeking to hire any full-time employees. I am a little bit jaded and I recognize that, but eventually I'm going to have to grow. I have a lot of pitches that I want to send out and for larger projects that are just kind of floating in my mind, and I need to be able to pass those off to someone who has the skills and the passion to see those through. Most of my day to day, as you know, Jesse, with being a business owner, it's not just doing fun brand deals. There's finances to worry about. There's other things in my mind as an entrepreneur, and my bandwidth for my passion projects, unfortunately, is just not where I want it to be. So I foresee myself bringing on some type of assistant, hopefully someone that's very, very creative and passionate about the influencer space to help me to sort of be an extension of my ideas and to be my right hand. I think that's going to happen sooner than later. I also would love to work with someone who can help me grow the roster in a direction that is desirable. I think there's so many. Unfortunately, I have to keep the roster very small because I am just a solopreneur, one man show. So I don't want to do anybody a disservice and bring people on. I would love to house more talent at Brink. There's so many people that I follow, that I have conversations with, that I just would love to bring onto the roster exclusively, but without the bandwidth or without other talent managers on board, it's so limiting, and I recognize that. And I think that's one of those active mistakes I am making, is maybe not expanding immediately. But with the longevity that I have planned for this company, it's just about hiring the right person. And I think it's about hiring the right person at the right time. So that's kind of where the route that I'm taking is going a little bit slower, not scaling very quickly, not bringing on a bunch of people. And I hate to be the person sort of bootstrapping it. I am going to do that until I feel super confident and super comfortable and find the right person to help me expand the vision. I also, something I'm personally passionate about is, I always love a great brand partnership, and I love for talent to be a part of wonderful ad campaigns with today's top brands. But I would love to help the roster put out more product and do more creative collaborations. I want I'm biased, but I want everyone on my roster to have a podcast, video with their podcast, and just have all of the things, have the merch and everything. And I think that's kind of where I'm going to expand, is just out of the box partnerships. And I think that's what you can expect from the company in 2024.
I love that so much. Look, I think one of the distinctions for what I hear is, I don't know, I hate to make these like broad generalizations, but in this instance, it's positive. So I'll make it anyway. Like, I think that is one thing that's really special about when women start companies, is that they're listening to their intuitions more and needing to feel it. And until it feels right, run it how your intuition is telling you to, because it's probably spot on. I think that when we, again, like this whole conversation, so much of it is about like these misnomers of business. So I've heard all the same things, right? Like we all have, like, you're supposed to scale your company and you're supposed to like hire all these.
Get capital and
Yeah, all those things. I'm literally saying it as like a dude voice because like that's like who does that in so many instances. I read this really interesting article yesterday. I'll send it to you. It's just about how like more women are like angel investing in a like way that they have in numbers that they never have before. And that informs things like that has such a trickle down effect in terms of like what companies are thriving because women will select different types of companies to invest in that resonates with them. And to what you're saying, you're going to run your company in perhaps a very different way than like your traditional, because of what they are taught. And we all just operate based on what we know. It's like no diss or no shade to anyone. That's just we operate based on how we know. So I feel like what you said just so resonated, which is like use things to your advantage, whether it's like considered good or bad, or it's just neither of those things. Like it just is what it is and freaking use it to your advantage. And this is one of those things. If you have great intuition, who cares what everybody else is telling you to do or what you think you should be doing? Like, that's all literally bullshit. Like, just do what your gut says. So,
I could not agree more. I think as women, we have this idea, and again, we hear no a lot. Over the weekend, I was at a summit, and I can't recall the girl who said this, but she said it so well. She said, if you want to make the wrong decision, ask everyone.
oh my God, I
And so
love that.
that just like, when I heard her say that, I was like, wow, I have been listening to myself and my intuition and that little voice in the back of my mind. And it's so nice to know that that's what that's what you're supposed to do. Like, use it, use your intuition. Like you said, use those soft skills. Those aren't even soft skills. Those are like everything. Those are hard skills. And again, if you want to make the wrong decision, ask everyone.
That's such a good way of putting it. Oh my God. It's such a good way of putting it. And it's so true. And like, look, like, again, it's just based on what we know. Sometimes you just have to experience when you do trust your intuition and you do trust your gut and you proceed forward with that decision. And then you have the reward of like, whoa, look what happened when I did that. Like, some people are too scared or trepidatious to try that out. And that's also one of the beautiful things that I'm so excited for you to experience as you like continue to own and like live and grow your own business, which is like the experimentation of it all and being able to like grow this confidence in yourself because you're going to make decisions and you're going to be able to like be like, wow, like I achieved this because I believed in this. I saw it through and look what happened. And like, there's so few instances in life where you can truly experience that. And this is totally one of them. I have a feeling that our audience is going to like, would just want to like get in touch with you and support your talent, support you and your business growth, and maybe like ask you questions, things like that. Pimp yourself out. How can our audience connect with you? How can they learn all about what you're doing?
You can check out my beautiful website at www.brinkmgmt.com. And you can follow up. You can keep up with what we're doing and what the talent's doing. I post everything on the company's Instagram at BrinkMGMT. You can also follow me personally. I will not stop talking about influencer economy, also decorating for the holidays, and I make sourdough bread. So follow me on my personal at Cheyenne Venuti and keep up with me.
I love that so much. I hope that I'm excited for the people who have watched this conversation on YouTube because they will see like the beautiful tree that's behind you and how beautifully decorated it is. So check her out for all the design, all the inspiration, and just like the passion for what you're doing. I think it's so exciting what you're doing. I'm so freaking proud of you. I know that our audience will definitely reach out. And for you guys, we will include all of those links in the show notes. So check there. Thank you for coming on today. It's so fun to catch up with you. And I appreciate you sharing just like all of your learnings and just being very honest about it all, because I know that our audience is really, really going to benefit. So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Jessie. This was such a pleasure. Everyone, just round of applause for Jessie, the pillar of women in influencer marketing and such an OG in this space. Thank you, Jessie.
Thank you guys. Thank you. Thank you for listening. And we will see you guys next week. Bye, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, we gotta have you back. Check out our website for more ways to get involved, including all the information you need about joining our collective. You can check out all the information at iamwim.com. Leave us a review, a rating, but the most important thing that we can ask you to do is to share this podcast.
Thanks for listening.
Tune in next week.
Tune in next week.